Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with another commentary video. And I do these from time to time when there's some type of issue in the Second Amendment community that I think I need to talk about because there's so much misinformation, or people are honestly on our side of the aisle, the pro-gun people, are being zombies. They're out there on the internet being keyboard warriors, saying stuff over and over and over again. The emotions are really high, and I look at it and say, hey, if you take a step back, this might not be exactly what you think it is. And today I'm going to talk about one of those things, and that is going to be Matthew Hoover, otherwise known as CRS Firearms, here on YouTube. Now, I will say I never watched any of his videos, and I was not a subscriber, but I did know about his channel because of what he was doing. Now, before I talk about the charges and who convicted him and what I think about all of this, I want to mention a couple of things first and foremost before you guys type in the comments and accuse me of certain things. I want to give you guys my personal political opinions on this. My first opinion is the NFA is unconstitutional. I believe that we should still be able to buy fully automatic weapons that are manufactured today. And I believe that we should fight to elect politicians that will repeal the NFA. But as I am filming this, the NFA is in full effect, so there's nothing that we can do. But I am a libertarian, and I believe that the ownership of machine guns should be free and open to anyone that is not a prohibited person. And the reason that I bring that up is I'm going to say a couple things in this video that I think people are going to think I'm a FUD, or they're going to say I'm a traitor to the cause. But it's only because I've had some time to take a step back and to look at this case in its entirety. I made a video over on the Texas Gun Vault 2 when this came out, and I said, hey, this is how I feel. I feel that this is a travesty of justice because obviously they should not be convicted of selling machine guns because they didn't actually sell machine guns. They sold these things called an auto key card, which I guess was about a piece of metal that was about this big, and on it was an etching, and it was not even deep, supposedly, of a drop-in auto sear for an AR-15, and they sold them to people. They were not manufactured, meaning like they weren't cut out or pre-drilled or any of that. It was just simply an etching. And of course, when he got arrested and eventually convicted, people said, I can't believe the ATF overreach because he was just selling art. Well, first off, he wasn't selling art. He never marketed it as artwork. He literally said, and I went back and looked at his videos and how he pretty much convicted himself. He told people that if you buy these, you can scratch your full auto itch. Well, that's pretty much saying you can buy these and turn them into machine guns. And granted, the information that he was providing on these cards, the dimensions of these drop-in auto sears, is not secret information. You can go online and find all of the dimensions free. So the government is not stopping you from having this information, but they convicted him and somebody else as conspiring to sell machine guns. And I asked people on the Texas Gun Vault 2, is there anything here that I'm missing? Because my gut reaction, my emotions say they're innocent and this is a great overreach of the federal government. Well, a few things have come to light, and my opinion on this has actually changed because I do what I preach to you guys to do. Do your own research, find out all of the information, and don't be guided by emotions alone. Use your brain, use your head, and figure out what's the truth here. Now, as I have studied this case a little bit, my opinion has changed. I do not think that Matthew Hoover is 100% innocent in this. To be very honest with you, I think there's fault on both sides. Matthew Hoover made a big mistake in the way that he talked about these items and the way that he sold and marketed them. But I also do think the ATF really overreached here. So I kind of put the blame at about 50-50. He's not innocent, and the ATF necessarily wasn't doing this grand overreach. So now let's talk about the charges and exactly what he was arrested on. He was convicted and arrested on conspiring to sell machine guns. And as I said, he wasn't actually selling real firearms. He was selling literally a piece of metal. And so one of the things that I want you guys to key in on is the ATF and the Department of Justice did not convict him. Everyone's mad at them. Yes, they indicted him and they arrested him, but he was ultimately convicted by a jury of his peers, people that aren't in the ATF or the FBI and don't work for the Department of Justice or law enforcement. They were just common citizens like you or I, because that's how our justice system works. So really, your anger of them being convicted really shouldn't all be put on the government agencies. A judge oversaw this trial. They had their day in court with legal representation, and a jury of their peers convicted them. So yeah, you can be upset with the ATF, but you also got to be upset with the common people. And I mentioned this in one of my last commentary videos where I talked about why I think eventually we are going to lose our Second Amendment rights, because the people in general in society are stupid. They just hear buzzwords. They hear selling machine guns. They don't have to go any further than that and then go, I will vote however the Department of Justice tells me because I don't know anything about machine guns, but I don't like machine guns. I will vote as a zombie to convict. But ultimately, that jury did deliberate and convicted them. The other thing we need to talk about is the concept of conspiracy, because that was one of the main charges that the government brought up in this case. Now, let me ask you and put this in a different perspective. I know many people that watch my channel probably fall into a category that is all about law and order. You guys would all agree that if there was a YouTube channel out there that was telling people, hey, you can scratch your arson itch, or you can get your Antifa riot itch scratched, and then they proceed to sell you items that you can commonly buy and find out on the internet that would mix together, that would make things like Molotov cocktails or poisonous gases, and they would ship them directly to your house, and you just have to pay them with a money order or cash. You guys would all go, hey, yeah, that information is freely available on the internet, and the items they're selling really aren't illegal, but they're telling people that they could do illegal things with this, and in a way inciting them to do it. There's got to be some type of law or something that we can do to stop this. And if people went out and used these products to burn down their cities, you'd be pretty mad. You would say YouTube has to do something about this. Law enforcement has to do something about this, even if these people aren't technically doing anything by the book that is illegal. They're selling legal products, legal chemicals that you might be able to buy down at your local grocery store. Or they're teaching people how to build Molotov cocktails and make them more effective. Information that you can go online and simply Google. A lot of people would say, we can't have this. There's got to be some type of law that they must be breaking. And that's what the government found. Conspiracy. Conspiracy to sell machine guns. Because while they weren't selling machine guns out, they were telling people you can buy this product and turn your AR-15 into a machine gun. And as I mentioned, before you type in the comment section below, I am not against machine guns personally. However, it is against the law to manufacture and sell them to civilians if they are a post-1986 unregistered machine gun. You can't do it. And there's a lot of penalties that come with it. So whether or not I like that law, that is the law. And that's what they were indicted on, because they were giving people the information to do it. Now, nobody to my knowledge took an auto key card and turned it into a machine gun. It's also my understanding that the ATF took about 45 minutes to turn one into a drop-in auto sear, and it wasn't even that well built. It didn't even run that well, but that was good enough for them to indict. So far we have the problem of Matt Hoover or CRS Firearms marketing these things, telling people you can scratch your full auto itch on one hand, and you do have the ATF not even be able to turn one of them into a real machine gun and still indicting. So far we have problems on both sides. The next thing I want to talk about is a message to all of those people that tell me on my pistol brace videos. I will not comply. The ATF can't create regulations, and if the ATF comes to my house to confiscate my guns, they're getting the bullets first. There's a lot of those keyboard warriors and revolutionaries out there. And I talked about in Why We're Going to Lose Our Gun Rights in the End, I say, you know, when it comes to the anti-gunners, I give them a lot of credit because every year they have anti-gun marches in cities across our country. They show up in force at courthouses and legislatures and protest. Where are the pro-gunners? Where are all these people that say, well, I'm not going to comply? Are you guys out there making your own auto key cards and selling them because you're not going to comply? No, you're not. Are you out there raising money for Matt's legal defense? No, you're not. Are you at the courthouse protesting? No. Do you know why? Because for the most part, you comply. I've mentioned that a lot. A lot of those people that say they're not going to comply, well, they comply a whole bunch. So where are those people right now? They talk big online, but they never show up. And that's because I think in a lot of people's hearts and minds, they realize that what CRS Firearms was doing really fell in a gray area and really borderlined on illegal activity. And for those of you that say this is completely legal and he did nothing wrong, he was just selling art. Well, then why was he telling people that you just had to fill out a piece of paper and mail it into them with cash or money order that could not be tracked to you, and they would ship it to any address that you wanted, whether that be an anti-gun family relative? Come on, if you're just selling art and selling a novelty, you wouldn't sell it that way. And honestly, I think there's some type of financial or banking fraud that's going on. Now, I'm not a big fan of the IRS and our current tax code. However, I know you can't sell things like that with untraceable amounts of money and lots of money. I understand that they made a lot of money from this, coming from cash and money orders. It wasn't being recorded. I also heard somewhere, and I have not found the evidence for this, that actually his financial institution also helped in this investigation because a lot of money was pouring into the makers of this device or these auto key cards, and it wasn't being reported anywhere. So we already had some financial scrupulous things happening. So if you're doing something that is completely above board and completely legal, why would you collect your money that way? But now let's talk about what I think when it comes to the intent. And one of the reasons why I think he was convicted, because it was all about intent. I personally believe, after looking at his videos, if he would have sold these little pieces of metal and flat out said, these are not drop-in auto sears, these are not lightning links. What they are is just a simple schematic. It's a drawing on a piece of metal, and that is it. It is a novelty. Don't turn it into anything. It's just to show you what they look like. It's a little keepsake. And if he never would have said things like scratch your full auto itch, I really don't think the ATF would have had as much of an issue with it, because here is why. When it comes to other items like the forced reset triggers, well, the ATF went around and tried to confiscate the ones that were sold from people that bought them. And don't get me wrong, while they tried to hide the financial records of who was buying and selling these, I'm sure the DOJ can figure out who bought one and maybe track at least one person down. But they haven't. They haven't gone after anybody that bought them, because I don't really think they look at them as really being that bad. It was more on the intent of what they were trying to do and what they were trying to sell. So they were really trying to entice people to buy these. And I believe it has to do more with intent than the actual item itself. If you go around saying, hey, if you buy this, you can make a machine gun, they're going to go, hey, this is really in this legal gray area and we have to do something. Because imagine if somebody actually took one of those auto key cards and successfully made a drop-in auto sear and then hurt a bunch of people with it. A lot of people would be upset and they would say, hey, we knew this was going on. And then you guys would all be saying, well, why can't the government stop these crazy people before it gets out of hand? Well, in this case, they kind of did. They went after somebody literally telling people you can make an illegal machine gun by buying this. And Honestly, that was very deceptive. It was wrong. It falls in this legal gray area. As I said, if they were just selling a piece of metal with that etching and just said, hey, this is not a drop-in auto sear, it will not work, it's just to show you the schematic of it, I really don't think there would have been as much of an issue because there was no intent to make a machine gun. So in the end, my personal thoughts and opinions lie at fault with both parties. The ATF definitely did do some overreach here. Those little auto key cards, in my opinion, are not machine guns because number one, the ATF was not able to manufacture a full auto drop-in auto sear out of one, or I heard that they could after 45 minutes. I know that I personally don't have the machinery or really the knowledge or the fabrication skills to do it myself. I don't think most people do. So they really arrested them and said, hey, this is a machine gun, and convinced a jury it's a machine gun when really, honestly, it's not. So that's on their side. But once again, CRS Firearms was telling people it was. He literally said it is a drop-in auto sear. It is a lightning link. But also think about the liability and what he was doing. One of the things I think is really important for us in the firearms community, and especially for people like myself that are publicly visible, that represent the Second Amendment or are ambassadors of the Second Amendment, is to make sure that people understand the law. They understand firearms law to the best of their ability, and to teach people to be safe and responsible. Now, you can disagree with any law you want, and we have mechanisms in society to deal with those. We have the courts, we have elections, and that's the way we should handle these in a civil society. So when you decide to go out there and poke the bear, you might have that bear come back at you and attack you. And that is honestly what happened. Matthew Hoover poked the bear, and the bear turned around and bit him back. Now, that doesn't mean I think he should go to jail for the rest of his life, because he's facing a huge sentence being convicted on these multiple felonies. But I'm not saying he is completely innocent of these charges like many other YouTubers are saying. But let's once again think about what he could have done. He could have sold one of these to somebody that had nefarious purposes, turned it into a lightning link, and then use that in an AR-15 in a mass casualty event. And what would happen to our Second Amendment in that case? We already have to fight assault weapons bans right now in the courts. But imagine if the public knew you could buy one of these little pieces of metal or download the information off the internet and make a lightning link and turn it into a machine gun. Well, we gotta ban AR-15s because it's inherent to the design that you can put in this little piece of metal and make them full auto. Ban them all now. It'd be a much harder battle for us to fight. But let's also look at it from the perspective of somebody that might buy one of these and has no intent of ever making a machine gun. They just think they're a cute little tchotchke, and they buy one, and then later the ATF comes after them. Or they're unaware that you're not allowed to turn one of these into a lightning link. After all, they bought it legally, and I don't really know the law. I go online and I see people shooting machine guns all the time. I guess it's legal for me to make it because I don't know the law, and they would go and do this, and then those otherwise responsible gun owners that have no intentions of ever hurting anybody could have their lives completely ruined and destroyed just because somebody wanted to make a quick buck on this piece of art. He could have gotten a lot of law-abiding gun owners in trouble inadvertently, and I don't think that is a good thing at all for the Second Amendment community. So he was potentially doing a lot of harm to our community. As I said, somebody could have used one of these, harmed a lot of people, and then we'd have to be fighting that in the legislatures and the courts for years to come, and we might lose all of our rights, and he could have inadvertently gotten people that otherwise would never be in trouble in a lot of trouble, because he was telling people, you can buy this, you can turn your AR-15 into a full auto machine gun. Man, he was saying it in his videos. He pretty much convicted himself. Now, I don't think he should be found guilty on making and selling unregistered machine guns. However, I do kind of think the charge of conspiracy to do so kind of makes sense, because he was doing these illegal financial activities when it came to a business, keeping everything under the table. It looks really shady. He was telling people that you can commit felonies by doing this, but here's the way to do it. As I said, think about it in the context of another YouTube channel teaching people how to make poisonous gas or very effective Molotov cocktails using basic household items. You guys would probably be pretty upset and say that has to be stopped, even though that knowledge is freely available on the internet. It's incitement to breaking the law. It's incitement to violence. It's incitement to committing felonies. And it might make people who are susceptible to those things go out and actually do it. It takes away a few of those steps that they would need. Now, as I said, I don't think actually selling those auto key cards was illegal unto itself. It's not art. We all knew what they were. Just like when it came to pistol braces, everyone knew, oh yeah, they're really going to be used as stocks. I think a lot of people knew, okay, maybe in an end of the world scenario when there's no more law enforcement, you might be able to Dremel one of these things out and bend it and weld it and kind of make it into an auto sear, I guess. We all knew what it was. Nobody was buying it for art. And I didn't even think this is a violation of free speech, because he was, I think, able to still make these because the information is freely. It was the intent of what he was saying. He was telling people that you could break the law and turn your AR-15 into an M16 with these things. And I also think he was committing fraud because, once again, I have heard nobody say they were able to successfully use one of these to make a gun full auto. The ATF wasn't able to do it. So if he was marketing saying, hey, you can turn these into lightning links, and nobody actually could and nobody did, that's false advertising. Well, I see so many issues here. I think, honestly, he dug his own grave. I don't think he deserves to rot in jail and in prison for decades and decades, but he is culpable for some of the things that he was indicted and charged for. So what I've told people in the past when it came to pistol braces, just shut up about it. Don't poke the bear, because the bear might turn around and bite you. And that's what people are doing. Just leave it alone. Don't say anything. Don't make a big deal about it. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I know we're free citizens. People are going to tell me that in the comments. It's just artwork. It's just freedom of speech. I get it, but you have to use your common sense. You can only flip off the ATF for so long before they're going to look at you and go, there's a problem here, and we're going to make an example out of you. And that's what the ATF did. And it was an overreach. So in conclusion, I think the fault is 50-50. The ATF and the DOJ definitely overstepped their constitutional authority. But on the other hand, Matt Hoover and CRS Firearms, they dug their own grave. They said things that made them culpable of these actions and made them look really, really guilty. I'm very glad that nobody was hurt physically in this, because nobody turned one of these into an actual lightning link and committed a crime with it. But imagine if they had. And all the things that we would have to deal with being law-abiding gun owners, even if you had never purchased one of these, and all the flack that we would get, all the uphill battles that we would have to fight. We can repeal the NFA. We can get new machine guns if we work hard collectively and educate people and elect representatives that will change the law, or fight the NFA in the courts. We can win this, but that's how we get full auto. We don't get it by going into the gray area and breaking the law. We live in a civil society, and let's do things and show the other side that we are civil, we're the educated ones, and do it by the book. So that's my personal thoughts and opinions on all this. I know some people are going to be upset with me about it, but I took a step back and I've looked at this from a different perspective. I'm not just angry and emotional and going, the ATF this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the ATF definitely overstepped their bounds. But let's just be honest, the people that were convicted were pretty stupid. They said some stupid things, and in my opinion, really did conspire to have people break the law. So there's fault on both sides. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. But remember, keep it respectful. So, as always, thanks for watching.